So our speaker tonight is Stefan Reynolds, and he needs no introduction, but I'll do one anyhow. Stefan has many talents. He is the Oblate Coordinator for Ireland. He's on the International Oblate Council, and he also is responsible for Via Vitae, the Oblate newsletter. He's done studies in Christian spiritualities. He's an icon painter and an author, and his latest book is The Wisdom of Love in the Song of Songs, which sounds wonderful. So tonight, Stefan is going to talk to us about what is it for me to be an oblate. And I think this is a great topic. It's one that no matter where you are on the journey, you look forward to hearing what Stefan is about to say. So thanks, Stefan.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. I'm often here anyway as a listener on Benedict's well, and nice to see you all. I'm going to put you in gallery so I do see you rather than see myself. Oh yeah. So I chose that reading from John Main, Gethsemane Talks, which talks about the self and the other, and the discovery of ourselves and turning towards the other. And that's going to be a bit the theme of my talk. And then I'll talk about the oblate life for me as a sort of journey of self-discovery and turning towards the other at the same time. I think every time you meditate, we do this journey. We come back to ourselves and settle down and get in touch with our breathing and where we are and all the things passing through our mind. And we settle down, and then we're saying the mantra. We're turning towards the other in love. And so I think every time we meditate, we're doing this journey of coming back to ourselves and turning towards the other. Another reading from John Main I stumbled across yesterday, which I think Gethsemane Talk says it very well. It's one of my favorite books of John Main because it's one of the most personal. It talks about his journey. But this little book, Monastic Prayer and the Modern Person, which is also in Community of Love. I have it in a little pamphlet form. But I was reading it yesterday, and this says much the same thing in a different way. Any truly personal relationship is a pilgrimage, and I'll try and today talk a bit about my own journey. Any personal relationship is a pilgrimage and an exploration and a discovery. We discover ourselves no less than the other. The hitherto unknown reality of our true self emerges like a picture from a negative at the moment when we have immersed our whole self in the otherness of the one we love and turned wholly towards that person. So this, I'm not the old photography where you had a negative and then the image emerged out of the negative. Now we have it all on our phones, so we don't really have that. But if you just imagine the old way where you had these sort of dark rooms where you had all these negatives sort of waiting for the image to emerge out of them. The color, basically a negative would be black and white, and then the color would emerge out of it. Now that's a bit like our lives, I think. Some ways it's all given. Our lives are all given, but the color has to emerge. The color of who we are. But it's in a sense all there from the beginning. It's just letting the color emerge of who we are. And he says in this reading that this happens as we turn away from ourselves, as we become immersed in the otherness of the one we love, and we turn wholly towards that person. So it's very personal relationship. And I think this is expressed in the loves of our lives, and also in community. Community is this way of being with others where we can be ourselves and turn towards the other person. So this is my this thing of finding ourselves, letting the color, it is more like something emerging, something. It's not so much finding ourselves like we would an object, like we lose something and then we're having to look for it and then we find it. It's more like becoming ourselves, unfolding of who we are. And it happens over time. It doesn't sort of happen sort of instantly. We grow into it. I was thinking yesterday a bit about sharing my journey. I think one of the key moments was when I was 19 and I went to India. And I was working, I took a year off after school and worked with the missionaries of charity, Mother Teresa nuns in London with the homeless, and then in India, in Calcutta. And it had a big effect on me. I'd had a sort of, went to a monastic school, actually, a Benedictine school in England. I was born in London, and my father is from Lancashire, North England, my mother from Sweden. So, but I'd had this upbringing at the Benedictine school. But when that year, I really discovered this desire to pray. And I had the sense that I had to find something new in order to respond to the suffering I was experiencing in the homelessness in London and the poverty in Calcutta. And nothing from my background, my rather privileged background, could give me the resource to really respond to that. And I knew I needed to pray, to find God, really. And I had I remember this sense, even now I remember it, that every thought I had was wrong. It's a very strong sense. In some ways, it was a breakdown. Every thought passing through my mind was inadequate for responding to life. So it was a very, in some ways, a dark night I went through. But the other side is that was another line which came to me, and I used to repeat, it was help me to pray each and every day. That I knew I needed to pray every day, because by myself, I was unhappy with myself, really. Now, it was a difficult time, and I think it was a sort of breakdown, but it was also a breakthrough in the sense of the discovery of prayer, which has always been with me since then. I didn't know meditation then, but I soon discovered it because I went to stay with B. Griffiths in India, this Benedictine monk, and there was a Christian meditation group in the ashram. And this little line, help me to pray each and every day, was answered when I heard about the practice of Christian meditation and the simplicity of it and the daily practice. So from then onwards, I was meditating. I went back to England and went to university. I had a strong sense that I wanted to be a monk because I was fond of my old school, Benedictines, and then I knew that prayer was really the most important thing in life. And so all the way through university, I was still thinking I wanted to be a monk, but I got involved working again with the homeless while I was at university. And then after university, I felt that I wanted to go on with this journey of discovering the side of life which wasn't so privileged as the background I had. So I went to work in L'Arche for a year to work with people with disabilities. And this encounter with poverty, really, in one form or another, the learning disabilities or the homelessness, showed me my own loneliness, my own poverty, and also my own brokenness, really. I think at the age of 19, there was also a big repression of sexuality. When I was in India, I sort of couldn't really cope with any of that side of life. And so it was a kind of repression had happened. And the only way I could come out of that was not really by being a monk, but was by encountering my own need for love and my own longing. So this was a time of discovery of the unconscious, really, which I had definitely tried to push away. I tried to push myself away, really. But then I went, because I am a sort of academic, there's always this journey from the unconscious and then back to the conscious. And I went back to university after that, because I always liked studying, and I still wasn't sure if I wanted to be a monk or not. And so I went, and then I lived at the Christian Meditation Center in London. That was Camden Hill Road a long time ago. And that was a wonderful time of integration, really, because it was very open to the world. It wasn't a kind of monastic life in the sense of separation. I could go out and visit my friends and family. I also started therapy there with a counselor, and this journey of therapy went on for decades to try and just to talk about myself, to be able to accept myself a bit more. And then later on, the discovery of confession. At that stage, I wasn't practicing confession very much, but now it's sort of replaced therapy, really, as a way of being able to talk about myself and get that sort of self-acceptance. I also had my first girlfriend then. I was 20, must have been about 25 by then. But a girl I met from L'Arche, we spent time together, and discovery of nature. I worked after leaving Camden Hill Road, I worked as a gardener in the countryside, and wanted to leave London and work as a gardener. And that's always stayed a great love of my life, gardening. I always go back to working as a gardener. And then after that, the relationship with my girlfriend in L'Arche, who's still a very good friend of mine. I'm the godfather of her first son. She's married an Italian man living in France, but I'm the godfather of her first son. But anyway, that didn't work. I mean, we were very different, really. And I went back to London and stayed at the monastery of Christ the King, Cockfosters, which was also the Christian Meditation Center, which again was a wonderful experience. It was a great monastic community, very dysfunctional, but I felt at home because I was just as dysfunctional. So that was a great. It was also an encounter with the international aspect of monasticism. It wasn't the English Benedictines like I was used to in my school, but very international. And but anyway, I really didn't. It was clear I didn't want to be a monk anyway. I was just working there, and I started a cafe in London. That was my little one business enterprise. Didn't work very well, but I stuck it for 2 years, and it was very close to Camden Hill, to St. Mark's, the Meditatio Center. It was the same time as that was being started, so I was very involved with the beginnings of the Meditatio Center, and that was a great sort of project of having in the London, not a monastery, but a center where people could come to. And the cafe was sort of just down the road, and I thought was a sort of little outreach for the Meditatio Center. But it was I didn't quite know the demands of the catering business. Very demanding. So after 2 years of being wiped out and financially and energetically, I kind of threw the towel in on that. But I got involved with the Young Meditators projects in London. At that stage, they were just starting this group of younger meditators, and we had events and 2 community projects in London. And that was good to spend time with people my own age, really, because prior to that, in these sort of monasteries and communities, I'd often been much older people who I learned a lot from, but this was great to make friends my own age, many of whom are still good friends now. Father Lawrence said, twice I went to America to work with the Christian meditation community in Tucson, Arizona, and then in Georgetown, the John Main Center, where I was also teaching in the university. And after that, I went back to university again. I was an eternal student going back to university because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, really. So all I knew is that I could study, and I loved studying. I was in Heathrop College and doing my PhD and working in the university there as a conference administrator. It was a sort of theological, philosophical college. It was a wonderful place, really. It didn't have that much meditation, but it was a wonderful place. So then, I have to keep an eye on the time. Oh my gosh, we move quickly. I'm trying to get on to. I think we'll be okay. Then I had another extraordinary experience. I got married to an English-Irish girl who I met in London. I knew her family actually a long time. And we moved to Ireland, where she had a big house, a sort of country house. And I got involved in restoring this country house. But it was also a very difficult time. The marriage broke down. And it was a very painful time. I was sort of in my 30s and 40 by then. I can't even remember. 40, no, late 30s. And it was a very difficult situation for me. And I really went through a dark night of the soul. I think that when I was 19, I went through dark night of the senses. For this was a real dark night of the soul, where everything I'd aimed for in life seemed to fall apart. I couldn't be a monk. I was beyond the age and beyond that. On my university, I'd hoped to go on teaching theology in university, but Heathrop College closed. There was no opportunities in Ireland. I'd studied the most obscure subjects, so nobody was learning them in universities anyway. And the great dream of my life to get married ended in close disaster. So I was really at my wit's end, living. I was sort of renting a tiny place in Ireland. But then I got a job. Then I went to this monastery here, where I live near, close to the Cistercians Trappist monastery in Ireland, mainly just to try and get some prayer and healing. And they were very kind, and they gave me a job. So we've been working with the Cistercians ever since here, different roles. First, I was just a cleaner. They said I was the most overqualified cleaner they'd ever employed academically. But then I worked in the guest house, and then doing a retreat program, and then in the cafe. Everything goes, the cafe, monastery, everything. All this is why the negative, all the elements sort of start of one's life sort of come back in a new form, in different forms. And then I had to go through this process of annulment and divorce. It was very painful at the time. And now my ex-wife and I are big friends. I went there for tea twice to visit her recently. So we're big friends again, but at that time it was a very painful times. But the monastery supported me. And I took to writing. That was when I wrote my 2 books on mindfulness and on the Song of Songs. Song of Songs is a very Cistercian theme. So I was using their library. I took up icon painting, which has been an enthusiasm, and my retreats, which I was giving there and elsewhere. And then I came into an inheritance of some money. I was always living impoverished, but then finally, so my grandmother, died, who I was very fond of, but I got an inheritance of some money, and I bought some cottages in Ireland, which I've been spending my time renovating. 4 cottages, 3 of which I rent and 1 where I live in, and then an acre of garden, which I love, and which I spend my life gardening here. And then I went back to India. I'd actually been a few times to India, to Shantivanam in the meantime, and which was Father Bede's ashram. Father Bede died, but I used to go back there. I'm very fond of Father Bede. But the other ashram was the Ramana Maharshi ashram in Tiruvannamalai, which is an extraordinary place, which in many ways is my heart is there. On this trip, where I stayed at the ashram, I met my Tamara, who's my wife now, who's a Croatian girl. I wasn't going to the ashram to meet a girl, that's for sure. I'd really given up on anything of that, and it was just trying to rediscover meditation in a deeper way, because I think in India they really have gone deeply into it in a way that we haven't in the West so much, although the mystical tradition does go into it. But I've always been wanted that immersion into the depths which India provides, or the meditation tradition of the East goes into. So I met Tamara there in the dining room in the ashram, and she has been the great joy of my life. She is, and we got married a few years later, and we live in between Ireland and Croatia. Sometimes she's there, like she's there at the moment, and I'm here in Ireland. And sometimes we're put together here, sometimes together there. She works there in the summer, so she pretty much has to be there the summer months. And whereas it's too hot for me over there, I prefer to be here. So nowadays I focus on gardening, my garden, which is my great passion. Writing, I've written a new book of poems, my own and my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was a poet, Irish, that's the Irish side of the family. I was rediscovering her writings, and yeah, that's it. So that's what I do now. And some work with the Cistercians still, and the Christian meditation stuff. So the question, who am I? After all this, it is a journey, a sort of unfolding through the ups and downs. I remember Father Bede saying, you look back at your life and all the ups and downs, all the things that have gone wrong, all the times of pain, and when people have suffered, and the messes you've made of everything. And then Father Bede used to say, but I realized that's not really me. And it is that extraordinary sense of that the self is you, but there's something other, and that is God. And our real identity is God. And this prayer of meditation is this turning towards God. And this turning towards God allows us to integrate all the opposites in our personality. One of the things of my journey has been this opposites, constant monastic life, marriage, the kind of study, the love of nature, sort of, and they all seem to be polarized until you discover God. And then when you discover God, you discover that they all belong, and they all make sense. All the aspects of who you are perfectly fine in God. So this practice of meditation has been continuous, and it creates the space for our spirit to expand. The other way of putting this, John Main says, our spirit expands so that any limitations become, we find a bigger self in God. So this, just to sum up now, very, very brief, oblation provides the framework for this practice. For me, it provides the practice of praying every day, whether I'm in the mood or not. This original desire I had to pray every day, praying wherever I am. I don't need to be in the monastery, and finding God in and through our relations with other people. That it's not just a personal journey, it's through relations with others. And way of serving others, both in the Christian meditation and in the wider community. I belong to a community, helping the community, the church, and my family and Tamara's family. And this leap of faith, which is the practice of meditation, for me, it's to let go of worrying. Like when I sit and meditate, like today I had to give a talk, so I was worrying. But then I let go of the worrying. Tamara said she'd hoped to marry a warrior, and she married a warrior. So I have to let go of that worrying and trust that all will be well. That's what my meditation teaches me. So who is the other? Well, for me, the other is everything I encounter in my day is the other, which I'm turning towards. There can be big others, like for me, moving countries, this leaping out of my own country to live in another country, Ireland, Croatia, India, finding my life partner, the journey of turning towards another through all the mistakes or muddles but still the healing and which goes on all the time, and then the joy of discovering the one who I really love. And this joy is the great blessing. I think by nature, my family, by nature, I'm a bit of an Eeyore, if anyone knows that. I kind of see, I'm a bit of a grumbler, but this joy is a great gift, and it gradually wells up despite all this sort of grumbling. And Benedict in his rule warns us about grumbling. So because joy is the real true response to life. And then the last thing is to give without counting the cost. I think we gradually, through meditation and through community and the oblate life, we learn that we learn to give, without always thinking, what am I getting? That's it.
Thanks, Stefan. It's a wonderful story told so beautifully, and it's a tender story. I think all of us will feel we're very privileged to have been blessed with your honesty and telling it warts and all the way you have. I noticed there was a few recurring themes, and one of them early on where you recognised breakdown was coupled to breakthrough, and I think that kept on popping back up. And also your early recognition of the importance of prayer. I was very impressed by that. And and also your recognition of how you love to study. These currents ran right through your life, and there was a lot of chaos there, obviously, that somehow you've integrated it all in a way that's so beautiful. So I thank you, Stefan. I think we all feel a great sense of love for you telling us that story. And now I'll return to Mary, who will. No, I'm sorry, we've just got to have our final prayer. I've lost my way. So I think I'm going to return to Mary. My notes have just run out. So Mary, could you just guide me into the final period? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We'll close with, may the divine assistance remain always with us.
And with our absent brothers and sisters. Thanks, Mary.
Well, thank you very much to Stefan for that very inspiring and beautiful journey through your life. I'm sure many of us will identify very deeply with some of the things that you said, and certainly some of them are mirrored in my life. So thank you very much for that, and thank you to Paul and Judy for guiding us through the prayer. Next week's speaker is Andrew McAllister, but at the moment I have no information on him or what he's going to be talking about. So I've no doubt something will come out with the email that will be sent later in the week. But other than that, it's a case of wait and see next week. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Those of you in places where it's very hot or very wet, I hope you keep safe. Let us all hold each other in prayer and meet again next Monday.
Thank you, Stefan. It's beautiful. Bye.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
You.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you, Stefan.
And Stefan, from me, guess who was
No,
here?
Lenny. Hello.
Guess who was here yesterday? Sylvia, all afternoon.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my, it's amazing.
yeah,
That's the amazing thing about life is all these things and things joined together.
and then your talk now that made it lifted up everything. It was very, very nice. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Sylvia is my